After 12 years in Black Ops, I returned home and found my mother pouring drinks inside the $6.8 million mansion I bought her. What would you do if you came home from a war, a ghost with scars, only to find your own brother had declared you dead, stolen everything from your mother, and turned her into a prisoner in the very home you bought for her? That's not just a hypothetical. That's my story. And for a moment, standing there, I wanted to end him. My name is Michael Reed. I'm 62. For 12 long years, I was a ghost, operating in places the maps don't even bother to print, doing things the government will never, ever acknowledge. I survived IEDs in Fallujah, firefights in Mogadishu, a helicopter crash in the mountains of Afghanistan. I came home with more scars than skin and a purple heart I'll never wear. But you know what? None of that, none of it, prepared me for what I found when I finally walked up the driveway of 2847 Ocean Boulevard, La Jolla, California. This wasn't just some random house. I'd bought this place 15 years ago, cash after my first big contract payout. We're talking $6.8 million for 8,000 square feet of pure California dream. White stucco, Spanish tile, an infinity pool staring out at the Pacific. I bought it for my mother, Emma Reed, the woman who raised me alone after my dad died when I was 7. This house was her comfort, her peace. A place where she could watch sunsets from the terrace, just like we used to when I was a kid, eating ice cream at the beach. I'd called ahead, of course. Told my brother Daniel I was finally coming home. He sounded surprised. Almost panicked, actually. He swore Mom was doing great, that the house was perfect, that everything was exactly as I'd left it. Said he'd been taking care of her, managing the property, making sure she wanted for nothing. He lied. The gate was wide open when I arrived. A catering truck hummed in the driveway. Music and laughter spilled out from the backyard. My military training kicked in silent movement, even on the gravel path. I moved around the side of the house, wanting to surprise them. I just wanted to see Mom's face light up when she saw her son, home safe after all these years. What I saw instead made my blood turn to ice. The party was in full swing. 50, maybe 60 people, scattered around the pool deck. Wealthy types, you know? Designer swimwear, bottles of Dom Perignon everywhere. And moving among them, carrying trays of canapés, refilling champagne flutes, was my mother. She was 78 years old, wearing a black and white maid's uniform that just hung off her frail frame. Her hair, once thick and silver, was now sparse, pulled back in a severe, tight bun. Her hands shook as she carried a heavy tray. I watched her nearly drop it, watched her apologize, profusely, to a woman young enough to be her granddaughter. I stood frozen behind a palm tree, just unable to process it. This was my mother. The woman who worked 2 jobs to keep me in school. The woman who never missed one of my football games, even when she was dead on her feet from exhaustion. And now, she was serving drinks to strangers in the very house I bought to honor her. The injustice. It burned. Then, a man snapped his fingers at her. "Hey you. More ice." She hurried to comply, her movements stiff with an arthritis I never knew she had. And that's when I saw him. My brother, Daniel, lounging on one of those custom Italian teak deck chairs I'd commissioned. Designer swim trunks, aviator sunglasses, a Cuban cigar in one hand, a crystal tumbler in the other. Next to him, his wife Jessica, stretched out like a pampered cat in a bikini that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Daniel was laughing, holding court, cracking jokes, guests in stitches. He looked prosperous, comfortable, like the lord of his own damn manor. My mother walked past him, struggling with a heavy cooler. He didn't even glance at her. Not a flicker of recognition. She might as well have been a piece of furniture. Something inside me cracked. It was the same gut-wrenching feeling I'd had the first time I saw a child killed by a suicide bomber. The same cold despair when I held my dying teammate in my arms, waiting for medevac. It was pure, unadulterated rage. And grief. And a terrible, cold clarity. I could have walked out there. I could have grabbed Daniel by the throat and thrown him into that infinity pool. But 12 years of tactical operations had drilled patience into my bones. I'd learned to wait for the perfect shot. I knew the best revenge wasn't quick and messy. It was the kind that utterly destroyed your enemy, not just temporarily inconvenienced them. I needed answers. I needed evidence. I needed to know the full, sickening extent of this betrayal before I made my move. So, I did what a SEAL does best. I went to work. Reconnaissance. I left the property, drove 3 blocks to a quiet coffee shop, pulled out my encrypted laptop, and started digging. Within an hour, I had accessed county property records, tax filings, court documents. What I found made me want to put my fist through the screen. The house. It wasn't in my mother's name anymore. It had been transferred to Daniel 6 years ago, according to a deed, bearing her signature. But I knew my mother's signature. I'd seen it on every birthday card she ever sent me. This one was close, but not quite right. The loop on the E was off. The slant was too steep. A clumsy fake. I dug deeper. Daniel had been declared Mom's legal guardian 3 years ago, citing diminished mental capacity and inability to manage her affairs. There was a doctor's report claiming early-stage dementia. The doctor? Richard Kelly. A quick search showed he'd been sued for fraud twice, license suspended once. A crooked doctor. Perfect. Then the bank statements. My mother's accounts? Drained. The $20,000 I'd been wiring home every single month for 12 years, from my offshore accounts? Rerouted. Straight into Daniel's personal accounts, starting 6 years ago. That's $250,000 a year. Nearly $1.5 million total. Gone. But the worst discovery, the one that truly twisted the knife, came when I searched for life insurance policies. Standard practice for guys like me. Before my first deployment, I'd taken out a $10 million policy, with Mom as the sole beneficiary. If you don't come back, at least your family is taken care of. The policy showed a claim filed 8 years ago. Beneficiary payout, $10 million. Recipient, Daniel Reed, as guardian and executor of Emma Reed's estate. They had declared me dead. I pulled up the claim documents. A death certificate, issued by some military bureaucrat I'd never heard of. Killed in action, it read. Body unrecoverable. The claim had been processed. The money paid out. And my mother? She never saw a dime. I sat in that coffee shop for 2 hours, staring at the screen, my hands gripping the edge of the table until my knuckles went white. I thought about all the missions I'd run, all the times I'd put my life on the line, and the whole time my own brother was back home, stealing my mother's house, stealing my money, making her work as a servant in what should have been her home. No, not her home anymore. His home. The home he stole. I slammed the laptop shut, pulled out a burner phone I'd picked up at a gas station. 3 calls. First, Marcus Chun, my old team medic. Retired now, runs a private security firm. Marcus, I need a full surveillance package. Cameras, audio, the works. Tonight. For you, Mike, he said, no hesitation. I can have it ready in 2 hours. Second, Sarah Blackwood, an attorney specializing in elder abuse. She's a Marine Corps veteran, too. Owed me a favor from a particularly nasty situation in Kandahar we'd both agreed never to discuss again. Sarah, I said, my voice tight, I need an emergency petition filed. Elder abuse, fraud, identity theft. How fast can you move? A pause. How bad is it, Mike? Bad enough that I'm considering solutions that would land me in Leavenworth. Another pause. Longer this time. Give me 12 hours to review the evidence. Don't do anything stupid until I call you back. Third, someone who didn't have a name. Not one I knew, anyway. He worked for a government agency that officially didn't exist. I'd saved his life in Syria. He told me if I ever needed anything at all, to call a certain number. I need financial records, I told him. Everything on Daniel Reed. Social security number, the works. I need to know where every dollar went. This personal, he asked. Very. You'll have it in 6 hours. I hung up, sat in my rental car, watching the sun bleed across the Pacific. I thought about my mother, probably cleaning up after that damn party, washing dishes, taking out trash, shuffling off to whatever forgotten corner of that house Daniel had relegated her to. I thought about the oath I took when I joined the SEALs, to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'd spent 12 years fighting foreign enemies. Now it was time to deal with the domestic one. I started the engine, drove to a hardware store. Marcus would bring the high-tech gear, but I needed the basics. A good lockpick set, contractor clothes, a clipboard, the kind of stuff that lets you walk into any building in America without raising an eyebrow. Because tonight I was going back. Tonight I was planting cameras in every room. Tonight I was going to start gathering the evidence that would bury my brother so deep he'd never see sunlight again. I had spent 12 years learning how to hunt the most dangerous men in the world. Daniel was about to learn what happened when a sheepdog comes home and finds wolves in his den. The night air was cool, almost peaceful. When I returned to Ocean Boulevard at 2 a.m., Marcus had met me a few blocks away, handed over a duffel bag packed with equipment. Pinhole cameras no bigger than a shirt button. Audio devices that could pick up a whisper from 50 feet away. A tablet to monitor everything in real time. Military grade, Mike, he'd said. Crystal clear, even in low light. Batteries last 6 months. He'd gripped my shoulder. Whatever you're planning, make sure it's legal. I don't want to visit you in prison. I'd promised. It'll be legal. Barely. I approached the house from the beach side, scaling the low wall that separated the property from the path. The party was long over. Lights out, except for a dim glow from the kitchen. Someone was still awake. I moved silently across the lawn, decades of training making my footsteps vanish. I peered through the kitchen window. My mother was there, hunched over the sink, washing dishes. In a threadbare nightgown, bare feet on the cold tile. She was crying, silently, tears running down her weathered face as she scrubbed a champagne flute. Every fiber of my being screamed to break down that door, to wrap her in my arms, tell her I was here, tell her everything would be okay. But I forced myself to stay still. If I revealed myself now, Daniel would lawyer up, destroy evidence, maybe even hurt her to keep her quiet. I needed overwhelming proof. I needed to catch him in an act so heinous, no amount of money or lawyers could save him. So I watched. I watched her finish the dishes. Watched her dry them, put them away with shaking hands. Watched her turn off the light, shuffle toward the back of the house. Not upstairs, where the master bedroom was. Not to any of the 4 guest rooms I'd furnished with expensive beds and artwork. She went to a door off the utility room, opened it, and descended a set of narrow stairs. The basement. They had my mother living in the basement. I waited until I was sure she was asleep. Then I went to work. I picked the lock on the back door, a skill the Navy had taught me for very different purposes. Inside, the house smelled wrong. Not like my mother's cooking or her lavender soap. It smelled like expensive cologne and stale wine, and the particular, sickening decay that comes from spiritual rot. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, placing cameras in air vents, behind picture frames, inside those ridiculously fake decorative succulents Jessica loved. Audio devices in the chandelier above the dining room table, in the living room right where Daniel liked to sprawl, and in the master bedroom. That master bedroom, it was an abomination. My mother's antique furniture, the pieces she'd inherited from her own mother, all gone. Replaced by modern, minimalist garbage. Probably cost a fortune, but had zero soul. The walk-in closet, which I designed for Mom's modest wardrobe, was crammed with Jessica's designer clothes, half of them still with tags. I placed a camera in the smoke detector and moved on. The basement was the worst. I designed it as an entertainment room, a wine cellar, maybe a home gym. Good bones, good light, good ventilation. Daniel had turned it into a cell. My mother's room was a corner, sectioned off with cheap drywall. Inside, a twin bed with a thin mattress, a small dresser, a single lamp. That was it. No windows, no decorations, no proper bathroom, just a door leading to a tiny utility toilet and sink. The water-stained ceiling had a crack, dripping moisture. On the dresser, in a cheap plastic frame, was a photograph. Me in my dress blues, from my SEAL training graduation 28 years ago. Young, proud, full of idealism. Next to it, my Purple Heart. The one I'd mailed home from Germany after getting hit with shrapnel. She'd kept them. Even after they told her I was dead. Even after they took everything else from her, she'd kept these. I placed a camera in the heating vent and left. By 4 a.m., I was back in my rental car, tablet in hand, watching the feeds come online, one by one. Crystal clear video. Perfect audio. I had eyes and ears in every important room in that house. Now I waited. Now I watched. And what I saw over the next 48 hours, it made me understand why combat veterans sometimes snap and do terrible, terrible things. Over the next 48 hours, I watched. And what I saw, well, it made me understand why veterans sometimes snap. I watched my brother order my mother around like she was less than human. Emma, I told you to use the polish on the silver, not the regular cleaner. Do you want to ruin it? It's worth more than you'll ever be. I watched Jessica throw a full cup of coffee at my mother because it wasn't hot enough. The ceramic mug shattered against the kitchen tile. Clean it up, Jessica snapped, not even looking up from her phone. And make me a new one. Actually hot this time. Not lukewarm like the swill you usually serve. My mother, my own mother, got on her hands and knees and picked up the broken pieces, her fingers bleeding from the sharp edges. I watched Daniel host another party. Smaller, this time just a dozen friends. Someone made a joke about the help. Asked where Daniel found her. He laughed. Believe it or not, she came with the house. Previous owner's mother or something. I keep her on out of charity. She's slow, but she works cheap. Previous owner. As if I'd never existed. As if I were just some stranger who used to live there. I watched my mother serve them dinner, a meal she'd spent 6 hours preparing. Not one person thanked her. When she tripped, spilling wine on the tablecloth, Daniel erupted. He grabbed her arms so hard she cried out, shoved her toward the kitchen. You stupid old woman. That's Italian linen. Do you have any idea what that costs? It comes out of your food budget. Food budget. I later learned Daniel gave her $40 a week for food. $40. In one of the most expensive cities in America. She was eating rice and canned beans while they gorged on Japanese Wagyu and French wine. But the moment that made me nearly break cover came on the third night of surveillance. I watched Jessica stumble downstairs to the basement, drunk from whatever expensive cocktail she'd been nursing all evening. She stood in the doorway of my mother's tiny room. You know what I think, Emma? Jessica slurred, her words dripping with malice. I think you're faking it. I think you remember everything. Playing up this dementia act to get sympathy. My mother, sitting on her thin mattress in her nightgown, looked up with confused, scared eyes. I'm sorry, Jessica. I don't understand. Don't you dare call me Jessica. It's Mrs. Reed to you. Jessica walked closer. Daniel is too soft on you. He lets you live here rent-free, gives you food, gives you work so you have something to do with your pathetic life. And how do you repay us? By making mistakes. By embarrassing us in front of our friends. I try my best, my mother whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry if I'm not good enough. You're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. Jessica looked around the bare room with disgust. This is better than you deserve, you know. Daniel wanted to put you in a state home, one of those places where they park old people and forget about them. But I convinced him to keep you here. So, show some gratitude. My mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Thank you for your kindness. Jessica laughed. Cold. Sharp. Kindness? That's rich. She turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Emma? If you ever mention Michael again, if you ever talk about your dead son to anyone, I'll make sure Daniel follows through on that nursing home threat. Understand? I understand. Good. Jessica climbed the stairs and slammed the door. I heard the lock click. They were locking her in. At night. I sat in my rental car, shaking with a rage so intense I thought I might black out. I had killed men for less than what I just witnessed. ended lives for following orders that did less damage than what my brother was doing to our mother every single day. But I forced myself to breathe, to think tactically. The mission wasn't complete. I still needed more. The financial evidence. The full scope of the fraud. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my contact at the agency. 3 encrypted files. I downloaded them, started reading. First file. Daniel's bank records. I traced that $10 million insurance payout. $2 million into a legitimate investment account, probably to avoid suspicion. The rest? Laundered. Through shell companies. Luxury cars bought and immediately sold. Art purchased at inflated prices from galleries that existed only on paper. Real estate flips that never actually happened. $5 million converted to gold, stored in a private vault in Vegas. $2 million blown on his lavish lifestyle, cars, trips to Europe, exclusive club memberships. The remaining $1 million? Just vanished into crypto wallets that would take a supercomputer to track. Second file. Property records. Daniel had been busy. The La Jolla house transferred to an LLC he controlled. He'd used my mother's identity to take out a reverse mortgage on her childhood home in Oregon, pocketed the money, and let the bank foreclose. Credit cards opened in her name, maxed out. Her credit score? Destroyed. She'd never be able to rent an apartment, get a loan. Third file. Medical records. I read through Dr. Kelly's notes with growing horror. That dementia diagnosis? Fabricated. Based on a single appointment where Daniel had accompanied my mother, answering all the questions for her. Patient demonstrates confusion and memory loss, the report read. Unable to recall basic information without assistance from family member. It was a setup. Daniel had coached her, probably threatened her, definitely manipulated the situation to get a diagnosis that would give him control. But there was more. I found records from her actual doctor, Dr. Sarah Martinez at the VA hospital. My mother had been seeing her for 10 years. The notes were detailed, clear. Patient is sharp, engaged, no signs of cognitive decline. Discussed current events, remembered detailed family history, demonstrated excellent recall. Her last appointment? 6 years ago, right before Daniel got those guardianship papers. After that, nothing. He'd cut her off from her real doctor, only taking her to the complicit Dr. Kelly when he needed documentation. I had everything I needed. Financial fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, insurance fraud. But I wanted more. I wanted to catch him in the act of something that would put him away for decades, not just a few years. So, I set a trap. I created a fake persona. Robert Halverson, real estate developer from Seattle. Marcus put together a website, business cards, the whole 9 yards. Then, I called Daniel's cell phone, the number I'd found in the property records. Mr. Reed, I said, pitching my voice slightly higher, adding a hint of that Pacific Northwest accent. My name is Robert Halverson. I'm a developer looking at properties in La Jolla. Your house came up in my search, and I'm wondering if you've ever considered selling? I could almost hear the gears turning in his greedy head. The house isn't on the market. I understand that. But I'm prepared to make an offer significantly above market value. I'm talking cash. Quick close. No contingencies. Would you be willing to meet? How much above market? I'm thinking in the range of $9.5 million. Silence. The house was worth maybe $7 million in the current market. I was offering him $2.5 million in pure, undeserved profit. When can we meet? Daniel asked, his voice practically purring. Tomorrow noon. I'll come to the property. I'll see you then, Mr. Halverson. I hung up and smiled. It was the same smile I used to wear right before a raid. The one my team used to joke about. Reed's got his murder face on. Someone's about to have a very bad day. The next morning, I watched on the cameras as Daniel went into a frenzy, yelling at my mother to clean every surface, polish every fixture, make the house perfect. We have an important visitor. If you embarrass me, you'll regret it. She worked all morning, slowly but thoroughly. I watched her dust the chandelier, standing on a ladder that wobbled dangerously, scrubbing floors until her back was bent with pain. Daniel? He didn't lift a finger. Just primped in an expensive suit, rehearsing his pitch in the mirror. At 11:30, he told her to disappear. Go to your room. Lock the door. I don't want the buyer to see you. You'll kill the deal. She obeyed without question, descending to the basement like a ghost. At noon, I rang the doorbell. Tailored suit, leather briefcase. I looked every inch the successful developer. Daniel opened the door with that same fake smile, the one that reminded me why I'd never liked him, even as kids. Mr. Halverson, please come in. Beautiful property, I said, looking around. Just beautiful. I can see why you love it here. It's been in my family for years, Daniel lied smoothly. But you know how it is. Time to downsize. Enjoy a different phase of life. We walked through the house. He showed me every room, spinning elaborate lies about its history, the renovations, the priceless artwork he'd hung on the walls. I nodded, took notes on an iPad, playing the role perfectly. Just one thing, I said as we finished the tour. County records show a discrepancy. The property was originally purchased by a Michael Reed. Are you related? Daniel's face flickered. Just for a moment. Then the smile returned, sickeningly. My brother. He died years ago. Sadly military. I inherited the property as next of kin. I'm sorry for your loss, I said. Was he in Iraq? Afghanistan? Both, actually. Hell of a soldier. Died a hero. He said it so smoothly, with such false sincerity, I wanted to break his jaw right there. Well, I said, I think we can move forward. I'd need to do some due diligence, of course. Title search, inspection, that sort of thing. But I'm prepared to write you a check for $1 million today as earnest money. His eyes gleamed. That's very generous. I have one condition, I said. I need to see the basement. The listing photos didn't show it, and I want to make sure there's no water damage or foundation issues. Of course, Daniel said, though a flicker of unease crossed his face. I should warn you, we use it for storage. It's a bit cluttered. We walked downstairs. I saw my mother's door, closed tight. Daniel led me to the other side of the basement, showing me the water heater, the electrical panel, talking fast about how everything was recently upgraded and up to code. I wandered over to the corner where my mother's room was. I tried the door handle. Locked. What's in here? I asked. Just storage, Daniel said quickly. Old furniture, boxes, nothing important. I'd like to see it. I don't have the key on me. I pulled a lockpick from my pocket. I've got tools. Mr. Halverson, I really don't think. Click. I picked the lock in 3 seconds. Opened the door. My mother was sitting on the bed, staring at her hands. She looked up when the door opened, fear in her eyes. Then she saw me. Really saw me. And something flickered in her expression. Recognition, maybe. Or just confusion at seeing a stranger. Who is this? I asked Daniel, my voice still calm, still playing the role. She's the housekeeper. She lives on site. In the basement. No windows, no proper bathroom. It's temporary. Daniel rambled, trying to recover. She prefers it down here. Quiet. I walked into the room. I looked at my mother. So thin. So fragile. So utterly broken. Ma'am, I said gently. What's your name? Emma, she whispered. Emma Reed. Reed. I looked at Daniel. Same last name as you. Coincidence. Common name, he stammered. I turned back to my mother. Emma, how long have you lived here? She looked at Daniel, seeking permission to speak. He gave a barely perceptible shake of his head. I don't remember, she said. I pulled out my phone, brought up a photo I downloaded from the county assessor's website. It was the property deed, with my name on it. Emma, I said. Do you know this person? Michael Reed. Her eyes filled with tears. My son, my Michael. But they told me he's gone. Who told you? Daniel, he said. Michael died in the war. I looked at Daniel. His face had gone pale. He was starting to understand. Something was very, very wrong. That's enough, he blurted. Mr. Halverson, I think you should leave. I ignored him. My eyes stayed on my mother. Emma, what if I told you Michael isn't dead? What if I told you he's alive? Don't listen to him, Emma, Daniel said sharply. He's confused. He doesn't know what he's talking about. My mother's hands were shaking uncontrollably. If Michael were alive, he would come home. He would come get me. I reached up, pulled off the fake glasses I'd been wearing, ran a hand through my hair, pushing it back the way I used to wear it. Let my posture change. Let my voice drop to its natural, deep register. I am home, Mom. She stared at me. I watched her mind work, watched her process the face, the voice, the eyes. I watched 12 years of lies begin to crumble, right before my very eyes. Michael, she whispered. It's me, Mom. She stood up, her legs shaking, took a step toward me, reaching out with trembling hands to touch my face. My boy, you are dead. I'm not dead. I'm here. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I held her, feeling how light she was, how fragile. Over her shoulder, I saw Daniel backing toward the door. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain. You declared me dead, I said, my voice dead calm. You collected my life insurance. You stole this house. You enslaved our mother. I was protecting her. She was confused. She needed help. You locked her in a basement, Daniel. You weren't here. You abandoned us. I was serving my country. I sent money every month. Money you stole. Daniel lunged for his phone. I moved faster. Muscle memory from 1,000 combat situations. His wrist was twisted behind his back, his phone on the floor, before he could dial. Let me go, he screamed. I'll call the police. Please do, I said. Because they're already on their way. As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer. I'd called Sarah Blackwood before coming to the house. She'd contacted the police, the DA, Adult Protective Services. They were coming. With a warrant. With medical personnel. With the full force of the law. Michael. My mother was still clinging to me, terrified I might vanish. Is this real? Are you really here? I'm really here, Mom. And I'm never leaving you again. Police officers streamed down the stairs first, followed by Sarah in her sharp suit, then 2 paramedics with a stretcher. Mr. Reed? One of the officers asked, looking at me. That's me, officer. This is my mother, Emma Reed. She's been held here, against her will. She needs medical attention. Daniel scrambled to his feet. That's insane. I'm her legal guardian. I have papers. Forged papers. Sarah interrupted, her voice cutting. Based on a fraudulent medical diagnosis. We have warrants for your arrest, Mr. Reed. Insurance fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, embezzlement. Shall I continue? More officers came down. They slapped handcuffs on Daniel as Sarah read him his rights. He was crying now. Pleading. Mike, please. I'm your brother. We can work this out. I looked at him. This man I'd played with as kids. Who I'd protected from bullies. Who I trusted to take care of the one person who mattered most to me. You stopped being my brother, I said, my voice cold, devoid of emotion, the day you locked our mother in a basement. Now, you're just a criminal. They took him upstairs. I heard Jessica screaming. I heard the officers telling her she was under arrest, too. Heard her threats, her denials, her hysterical sobs. The paramedics checked my mother. Malnutrition, they said. Dehydration. Probably some broken ribs that had healed wrong. They wanted to take her to the hospital. I'll ride with her, I said. At the hospital, they ran so many tests. Tests that confirmed she had no dementia. No cognitive decline. Her memory was perfect. She remembered everything Daniel had done. Every humiliation. Every threat. She'd just been too terrified. Too isolated to get help. Why didn't you call me? I asked her, sitting in her hospital room. They told me you were dead, honey, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. They showed me papers, a death certificate. They said you died in Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan, I said. But I didn't die. When you didn't come home, when years went by, and you didn't write or call, I thought maybe it was true. Tears rolled down her weathered cheeks. I thought I'd lost you. I was on Black Ops, Mom. Deep cover. I couldn't make contact. I thought you were safe. I thought Daniel was taking care of you. She squeezed my hand. You're here now. That's what matters. Over the next week, the full scope of Daniel and Jessica's crimes came to light. The district attorney was building a case that would put them away for 20 years minimum. The insurance company wanted their $10 million back, plus penalties. The IRS was looking at tax fraud. Adult Protective Services had documented enough abuse to file their own charges. Sarah Blackwood, that incredible lawyer, worked her magic. The fraudulent guardianship was dissolved. Daniel's power of attorney revoked. The house deed challenged and overturned. Everything that was taken was being returned. But there was one more surprise waiting for us. I sat with my mother in the hospital room when my mysterious contact sent me one final file. A cryptocurrency wallet. One Daniel didn't even know about. I'd opened it 15 years ago, right when Bitcoin was just starting. Put $50,000 into it as an experiment. And then, frankly, forgot about it. That $50,000? It was now worth $83 million. I showed my mother the number on my laptop screen. She stared at it, not quite comprehending.
This is yours, I said.
All of it? Michael, I can't. You can. You will. You're going to buy yourself a new house. Anywhere you want. And you're never going to worry about money again.
She cried.
Happy tears this time. A month later, we stood on the deck of her new home. Not the La Jolla mansion. I'd sold that immediately. She didn't want it, didn't want the memories. Instead, we bought a smaller, beautiful Craftsman in Coronado, right on the bay. 3 bedrooms, a garden, neighbors who brought casseroles, and welcomed her warmly. Daniel and Jessica were in custody, awaiting trial. Their assets seized. They would spend the next 2 decades in prison, and when they got out, they'd be penniless and unemployable. Dr. Kelly lost his medical license permanently, facing his own criminal charges. Mom had gained back 15 pounds. The color had returned to her face. She was seeing a therapist, working through the trauma, but mostly, she was healing. I still can't believe you're here, she said as we watched the sunset over the water. Believe it, Mom. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm retired now. No more deployments. What will you do? She asked. I thought about it. Maybe I'll write a book. How to Destroy Your Enemies Using the Legal System. Could be a bestseller. She laughed. It was the first time I'd heard her truly laugh in years. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the boats in the harbor, listening to the gulls. I'd spent 12 years fighting terrorists, dictators, fanatics. I'd learned that the worst enemies aren't always the ones shooting at you. Sometimes, they're the ones who smile to your face while they destroy everything you love. But I'd also learned that justice, while sometimes delayed, is never denied. Not when you have the patience to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Daniel had gambled that I was dead, that I'd never come home, that he could steal with impunity. He'd forgotten the first rule of warfare: never leave an enemy alive behind you. He'd left me alive, and I'd come home. The sunset turned the water gold. My mother reached over and took my hand. Thank you, son. For what? For coming back. For fighting for me. For being my hero. I squeezed her hand. You raised a seal, Mom. We never leave anyone behind. Especially not family. We sat there until the stars came out. 2 survivors of different kinds of wars. Finally home. Finally at peace. So, that's my story. It was a long road, filled with battles I never expected. Now that you've heard it, I have to ask, what would you have done if you found your own family betraying you like this? I really want to know what you think, so leave a comment below. I'll be reading them.